there are many written by wonderful practitioners based upon their own success and others' success, organizational success, and so on. The Western model had built out very good systems. That is how the many large corporations have come to stay and they have to come to evolve and they have responded to the changes very well. It's all about building an organizational culture, leadership, ability to learn, evolve, and to respond, and also to create value on a continuing basis to the shareholders and also to the societies in which they are positioned. So that management has taught large logistics. The management has always been as old as the human history. We as humans, as a groups, when we have come together, we have formed societies, we have formed groups and became larger entities. These are all possible because of the foundational principles of management. That came innately, that came naturally, which we call personal wisdom or a charisma or leadership of individuals. But not being really structured and put together as a template, as a practice which could be followed to give definitive results. That is called the science of management. Science of management, the West had done a wonderful job of application of large resources, both human and otherwise, and for desired results, which also brings about progress in the society. This is the science of management. But the intellectuals, serious intellectuals like our own intellectuals, our ancients, have taught a different template. That is the art of management. What is the art of management? How is it different from the science of management? Is the art of management starts from within, from understanding yourself. And our ancients are the best who had gone deep inside to understand the nature of our mind, the nature of a human being responses, the nature of the human being's innate urges, and how they could be used in a very transformative way. The art of management is something which is well founded in our own culture, in our own civilization. These are civilizational values, which every civilization has, but as a very ancient and a very vibrant civilization, we have imbibed these values which stood the test of time. And it has come a time for us to teach the world about the wisdom of these universal ideas of transformation that has come from within. In a sense, every change any organizational change has to come from within. You transform, you evolve for the better of yourself and for the better of the fellow beings. This is called a very dharmic way of management, which we have successfully practiced. This is what I have learned when I went to the Meta retreat at Tiruvannamalai. It was really an eye-opener for me. For instance, Mr. Prasad had made a very significant observation. We all know that our motivation has been very well understood and well articulated by no other than Abraham Maslow, who had given a pyramidal the arrangement of the self-fulfillment. We first work for our security, then we work for something beyond security, then we work for self-fulfillment, and the pyramid has stopped there. Mr. Prasad is acquainted with Maslow and the Maslow's Institute. But there is another important element which he said was missing. After reaching a mountain top, you don't want to be very lonely at the top. You want others also, fellow travelers, to come. To help the others to reach the fulfillment, to reach that elevation, to reach that enlightenment is what our values are about. This, the Western management doesn't have it. Western management talks about the short term, the very short term, because Lord Keynes has said, don't think about the long term, you're all dead in any case. And it's all management by objectives, a management which are quantifiable. These are all targets, these are all numbers. these are quarterly results and these are annual results, and ultimately these are all oriented to stock market and how the value of the stock has appreciated and how the shareholders are getting return. But what about the people? Mr. Prasad also made a very significant statement that the Western organizations, the weakness, he said, is they are traveling towards happiness, but they are not working in happiness. So, this is also an important element. And also quoted the management paradigm of Stephen Covey, who said that it is not enough to do right things. It is important to do things right. That would contribute to the sustaining of an organization and to be relevant, to be able to create value on a continuing basis for the organization and to the organization's ethical outlook and functioning, taking responsibility for the general environment, the environment itself, the society itself. The organizations have to be rooted in these fundamental values to create value for the society, for the nation, wherever they are. So these are very eye-opening thoughts, which I had benefit in the short today camp. I have noted down all this. They're very relevant and they have a great relevance even to us at ASCII, as we all have to adopt the new Karma Yogi matrix, the Karma Yogi competencies. They are all rooted in these foundational principles. And we cannot have a better person than Mr. Prasad Kaipa to share his thoughts with us. And I really thank him. And it is really an honor to have him here with us and to share his ideas with us all today, this afternoon. Thank you.
So I just wanted to make sure whatever I'm saying, let us listen from that particular person. So, can you go to the next slide? So first, I used to teach in ISB. I was a fellow at Apple. I have taught in variety of places. What is this Institute of Indic Wisdom? We found a couple of years ago that there is a dire need in the West, let alone in the India. There are lots of mental illnesses. Employee engagement is all-time low. And people are struggling with meaning, purpose, and passion. And the innovation has really dived down quite a bit. Because of that, many organizations around the world are beginning to look for alternate management models, both for governance, corporate governance, organizational governance, and also for human management, not just the machine management. And especially with the AI, with the ChatGPT and with Gemini and with Meta and all of them, there are serious questions about what is the contribution human beings make. Because it is no longer predictability or I can see the patterns quicker than anybody else. Who is the most intelligent person in the room? It's already determined. The most intelligent person in the room is the person who is working with the AI to go hand in hand and to provide answers. Because no human being is as smart as the computer anymore, as the AI anymore. So then what is the contribution of human beings? In that context, we need to re-examine what is the wisdom, how do we apply it, and how do we add value in terms of happiness. Like there is something called a positive psychology. Many of you probably are very familiar with. And the organizational context of positive psychology is positive organizational scholarship. POS, University of Michigan professors have been dominant, but University of Pennsylvania and there are several universities around the world have pretty much taken the positive psychology as the approach to moving forward instead of the old-time Jung or Freud or traditional clinical psychology approaches that are. So Institute of Indic Wisdom is focusing on bringing that. I'll talk a little bit more. And then why IKS systems are important today and the role of spirituality in leadership. There is a group for many of you, if you are academics, you probably know that the Academy of Management is the Makkah everybody goes every year. 10 to 20,000 people show up, whether it is in Chicago or Boston or wherever the conference is. There are large number of meetings that take place. One of the dominant subgroups in it, which has been fastest growing, is called Management of Spirituality and Religion. By the way, it is important to differentiate spirituality from religion, even though certain segments look at it and say, how can you differentiate from spirituality and religion? As a political question, as a religious question, we are not addressing it. We are addressing it from an academic, from a perspective. There are differentiations and distinctions that can be made from spirituality to be different from religion. And we'll talk more about it. Then the core concepts, which I thought we should quickly address, are dharma, because as I said, that is a non-translatable, and it has got a lot more meaning, not only ethics. For example, if a person like President Trump, who is a convicted felon with a large number of what you might call a felonies, who comes in and everybody accepts him because he is good for you, he is good for me, he is good for the businesses, he is good for India, so we will accept him. We will ignore everything else. Now, that's a very interesting perspective, because more than 50% of the United States people decided that we would rather go with Donald Trump. Now, many of the business schools are no longer teaching ethics, because when they teach ethics, the number of students who enroll in the ethics are the lowest number. So there is an interesting perspective. How do you teach ethics ethically, but at the same time make it much more interesting so that the students and teachers actually participate? I don't know whether that's the same experience you are having here. Okay. From the nodding, that's what. Then comes the Karma Yoga, because the Karma Yogi, Dr. Balasubramaniam's capacity building commission, and then the Karma Yogi stuff is very, very important, very interesting to look at. What is Karma Yoga? Because there are other words people call karmisti. Karmisti is a person who does the action, but he does not see beginning or end of any of this. You are telling me to do this, I will do this. Why? I'm not going to ask. And I'm not going to ask you how much are you going to pay me, because you are forcing me to do this job, so I'm going to do this job. But I'm not going to worry about the quality of it. I'm not going to worry about the outcome of it, because my job is just to do it. And I will even quote, Karmanya vadikaraste mapalishikada. My job is just to do the process, not to look at the outcome. So you can actually take the same slokas and misuse it as much. So that is a person who gets caught up. Who is the Karma Yogi? We'll talk more. And why is it important? And Panchakosha, there is something which is in a Taittiriya Upanishad, they talk about human being having multiple layers. What we see is only one layer, which is the body layer. What we experience is their energy, their vitality, their presence. We call it executive presence. Where is that executive presence coming from? Is about their ability to control their breath, control their prana, and they project themselves in a way like when we call charisma. The charisma is connected to pranamaya kosha. When people say, oh, that person has a lot of kala in their face, that person is really, if you look at them, they have a lot of beauty of a different kind. It is not a appealing appearance kind of beauty, but there is a certain virtuous, we call, that is connected with the pranamaya kosha. Then you have manomaya kosha. Manas is another word, it is not easily translatable, because mind, according to the Western psychology and the medicine, mind is an epiphenomenon of the body-brain complex, is one definition. Our mind is what the brain does to the body, if you look at Sleep Research Institute. So the manas that we call is the lower part of the mind, Whereas buddhi is the higher part of the mind, then chitta, the accumulation of all our knowledge that we recall, is the another part of the mind, and ahankara is also called another part of the mind. These are all called part of antakarana, we call it. But in the Western context, mind is not that subtle. There isn't much layers. That's the third layer. You can say roughly our emotional part of the mind, emotional mind, sankalpa vikalpatmakam manaha, the one that gives us the intentionality, the will, and the confusion when we are overwhelmed or when we don't understand, the one that brings that emotional responses is the manas, you can call it. For the sake of discussion, there is a lot more depth to it, but let's not go into it. The fourth one is Vijnanamaya Kosha. Vijnanamaya Kosha, you can translate it as the one that gives us the decision-making capability. Once we have a right kind of a knowledge, what decisions are we going to make? How are we going to make those decisions? And then fifth is the Anandamaya Kosha. Very interesting. Now, there have been lots of books in management about happiness. In the Western United States definition, the happiness is part of their constitution. The pursuit of happiness is one of the three things in American Constitution they talk about. But in Indian context, happiness is not that what you pursue. Happiness is your birthright. Happiness is what you are born into. Anando brahmeti vyajanat anandat eva kalvimani bhutani jayanti. Into the happiness people are born. From the happiness people are born. People actually grow when they feel happy. When you appreciate, people appreciate. That means the appreciation appreciates, depreciation depreciates. Why? If you are a parent, you know very well. Children, when you tell them you are doing exceedingly well in that, you are good in math, aren't you? Chances are, even if that's a neighbor's kid or that's a niece or nephew whom you talk to, every time you go to them, they will come with a new problem and they will show you their province in the mathematics again and again. Why? You appreciated them, saying that you seem to be very good in solving problems. So what does that mean? When we hear an appreciation, somehow we expand. When we are put down, when we are criticized, we contract. By the way, when I was a fellow at the Center for Creative Leadership, we used to do programs for the top managers, like a 3-star generals, like CEOs who manage like at least $1 billion revenues. Some of them, we take about only 10, 12 people for a week and work with them. You know what is the most important message they take away from 1 week experience? Doing the performance reviews, it is very important for 3 or 4 positive strokes that you have given in the performance review. Please make sure you have only 1 developmental objective that you have given. If you try to do, oh, I have appreciated them in 4 areas. Let me tell them 4 areas that they are going to develop. It doesn't work. You need to give 4 positive strokes for you to gain the eligibility and for their minds to open up enough that they will take 1 negative stroke from you. Because human beings develop very small amount, only 1 area in the time. So that means if you want to gain ability as a manager to develop your people in the workplace, you have very limited amount of disruption that you can do. By the way, that comes from the whole idea of Anandamaya Kosha. Why? Ananda is connected with your ego. Actually, our personality is deeply connected with happiness. This does not show up in any Western psychology, but it shows up in Panchakosha Prakaranam of Taittiriya Upanishad. So, Anandamaya Kosha, the happiness that we experience, the sukham that we call, or the comfort that we experience, or the managers with whom we have chemistry, all of that is how happy are we to work with them? how happy do they make us feel? Or there are different layers of happiness. Modo dakshina pakyaha, pramoda uttara pakyaha, ananda atma brahma picham pratishtha. Even in same Taittiriya Upanishad says there is ananda is different, there is moda is different, there is pramoda is different. I wrote a LinkedIn blog where there are 13 words for happiness of different kinds in Sanskrit. Each of them are appropriate at a different time. So as a manager, as a professor, if you learn to use different ways in which you can provide happiness to them, you will grow different parts of who they are as human beings. Why? Again, because our personality is connected to how we look at ourselves. How we look at ourselves depends upon how other people look at us. How other people look at us depends on how they make us happy, and how we feel happy allows us to disrupt our existing mindset and grow and develop. So for learning and development, the most important is how do you disrupt their growth so that they can actually develop themselves. Hair grows, nails grow. People don't grow very often. Like we were talking at lunchtime with Ramesh Kumarji and some of us, we were talking, most people don't actually develop. They don't even have training. Like especially in the public sector, many of them, they try to learn a little bit on the job, but very few times they learn. So we need to find a way. If you want by the way, the difference between a training and development, training is where you give them skills. If you want them to develop competencies, especially competencies where they have been weak, you need to disrupt their mindset. You need to disrupt their existing way of thinking. By the way, in the Gurukul or in the system, there is a word for it. It is called avidya kshetram. You need to break up their chaotic mind to get them onto path of dharmic mind. The avidya kshetram doesn't mean people are ignorant. They are knowledgeable, but they are confused between different messages that are coming from different points of view, from different authors, different poets. So they actually have contradictory ideas, but those contradictory ideas, we live it. Like a person may be very rational, and he doesn't believe in God, he doesn't believe in religion, he doesn't believe in spirituality and everything. But when I see him for an exam on the third day with the same shirt, I ask him, what happened? He said, sir, whenever I wear this shirt, I have been lucky. I get very good questions. He does not relate that this is nothing but a certain way in which he is framing various stuff. So it is important to recognize that we have some things like a Panchakosha concept which talk about layering of personality, human development. So learning and development, training and development, we can train for skills, but we cannot train for competencies. We cannot train for mindset change. We need to provoke in such a way they develop themselves. They are motivated and become curious and dig deeper into learning themselves. So the learning and development are much more connected than training and development. So there are differences where we can talk about skills, knowledge, competencies, and capabilities. So how do we develop capabilities of public service people or your clients is a very different conversation than training them for skills, training them for competencies. Okay, so we can connect those to national education policy and the Karma Yogi concept, and then innovation, because ultimately innovation. One quick thing is creativity. Everybody is creative. As a matter of fact, somehow God has given extra amount of creativity to all Indians. If you go on the streets, you know how we drive and how we navigate, how we can get to. If we see any kind of anything, any loophole anywhere, we are the first one around the world who know how to leverage it. Our jugaad is extraordinary. Books are written about it. It is, when it works, it is fantastic. But because of that jugaad is used only for me and people whom I consider are closest, my jugaad gets into conflict with your jugaad and the traffic doesn't move. Because everybody wants to figure out a quick way to get out of that. So we have lots of jams, which is what is happening in organizations, which is where the process, SOP doesn't work. As some very, very unpolitics language, they say, SOP, they change the words a little bit, and that SOP is getting in the way. Isn't it? But the question it comes down to is it is an individual way of thinking. So let's look at how we can do all. So first, as I mentioned already, I won't talk about it. We are trying to take this perennial wisdom into contemporary practices for globalizing leaders and organizations. And by the way, flourishing ecosystems is the word that is used in positive psychology. Only thing is, the flourishing as it is being done in positive psychology is only like from 0 to positive. They do not acknowledge negative. They do not talk about shadow. They do not talk about anything that is not positive. Everything has to be appreciative. But as you and I know, there are shadow sides to each one of us. As a matter of fact, true development comes when we people help you to put a mirror to your shadow, when I can own it, when I can embrace it. Chances are my development becomes much faster. So we'll talk more about it. And what is it? Our vision, long-term vision. So I'll just say that and we'll see. What we feel is the time is right, just like a Japanese management worked for manufacturing, Indian management will be very good for human management, because I think people management, AI, technology, IT, any of that, now the people and their thinking, their knowledge and innovation, their creativity translated into business value, which is innovation, that is what is becoming more important. And how do we do that? So for that, we feel we need something like a Indic Wisdom Prize, like a Nobel Prize. And we need to create wisdom indices. If there are any economists in your group, we need to think about how to create wisdom indices. Like people have created sustainability indices. A group of companies, if they follow certain dharmic practices, if they do, how well they do when compared to their competitive companies. We need to develop such things. And global forums, like a Davos forum, we can do, and journal, alliances, conferences. These are some things which we think we need to create a movement. In 1980s and 90s, Japanese wisdom became the most important for factories. Hopefully in 2030s, maybe the Indian wisdom will be something that can become, that can lead the human management movement and corporate governance movement. That's the vision. And we are not a consulting. We are a non-profit, actually, both in United States and India. We operate more as a research institute and a design studio. So we help people to develop what they need to do. We try to be a management think tank to help them to put together courses, put together programs, put together degrees, put together coaching, other kinds of stuff. But we are actually very small in number. So what we operate from is that we do it as a pay it forward. So whatever I used to charge big money type of things, now we say, if you are going to, if I'll come and do it, but you pay it forward to a non-profit of some choice or some research organization, or donate something so that it will move forward. So we collaborate with a lot of universities. We are developing something for ISB. We are developing, I am teaching a course in George Washington University. We are working with a couple of companies, but to put together courses, develop programs, develop things which are in there. And now, I don't need to go into it very much, but it is important to recognize the interdependence is one of the most important concepts, if you take from Indian knowledge systems, that is necessary today. In the West, I was on the board of something called a Society for Organizational Learning. Peter Senge had written a book called Fifth Discipline. And in 1992, for next 20 years, the learning organizations, even DG had referred to the learning organizations. I was on the board of their organization for several years. We worked on some of the things on how to develop it. It's most important, they call it systems thinking. That is the fifth discipline that puts everything together. We call it Purnam, Purnatvam. The concept of wholeness is about interdependence. And there are several mantras. Purusha Suktam talks about right up front, 1,000, Sahasraksha, Sahasrapat, Sabhumir, Viswato, Vrutva. The consciousness shows up in 1,000 names, 1,000 forms, in 1,000 ways. What does it really mean? All of them are interconnected. Or there is something called Aikamatya Suttam. So it talks about how we need to work together. So that's the most important concept that people need today. Not just about everybody for themselves, which is generally in the United States most important. It's important to recognize the knowledge does not grow by individual. It actually multiplies when we can learn from each other, learn through each other, and develop some things together. So the 21st century, our thinking, if it has to become sharper than any AI or computers, it has to become together. The whole idea of learning with each other, learning from each other, and growing, like the concept of like Indian classical music. If you take whether it is a North Indian classical or South Indian classical like Carnatic music, they don't play by the scales. They improvise. Similar music in the West, they call it jazz music. Jazz band does not have a scale and a book, and they don't practice everything and repeat exactly the same thing. They build something, and if audience are great, that will stimulate the artist. If the artist is great, the what you call the accompaniment and the accompanying violin starts doing some magic, that raises the level of the vocalist. And if the vocalist is doing very well, there are, like especially if you go to some of these music festivals, many of the connoisseurs don't just keep on clapping for everything. They wait. Only if it is extraordinary, they clap. When they clap, the artists take it to the next level. So the idea is anything innovative, anything great actually happens by kind of a way of creating a flow between multiple people. The time has come to recognize there are no individual leaders, there are no individual heroes, there are no one person who can generate everything. It has to be done in collaboration. Samvadatvam, they say, the whole idea of everything has to happen through not only your prayer and your sadhana and your work, but also by other people. Second concept, which is extraordinarily important, is the inner journey. Your inner journey is going to determine the outer attainment of goals. If you want to become extraordinary in the West, you cannot just show off from the outer perspective. Where is your thought coming from? What is the quality of your thinking? Like in Google, one example, there were two Abhisheks who were contemporary in some of these early programs. Both studied in IIT Bombay. They graduated. And they both studied in Stanford University. And they joined Google at the same time. They had pretty much the same qualifications. But there was one Indian, Prasad, one gentleman who was the vice president of human resources. When they came up with the metrics of studying productivity of some of these, coders and designers and some of them, he found out the difference between a creative, innovative coder versus not so innovative and okay kind of coder can be 15 times to 1. That means the productivity can be 1500 to 1 difference can be there in terms of the quality of it. Where does that come from? Obviously not from education, obviously not from the best practices, but this person's learning ability, which is also connected with unlearning capability. This person is able to get rid of the bad habits quickly so that his code might be only 1500 lines, but that can do 150,000 lines code somebody else has done. So it is not the quantity, but the quality. That quality depends on the quality of thinking. And quality of thinking depends upon the quality of your emotional equanimity. The samabuddhi, samatvam yoga uchyate, we say in Bhagavad Gita in one of the second chapters. That means, can I be equanimous even if something good is happening, something bad is happening? Can I have an emotional intelligence to bring my mind from a lot of agitation or a lot of happiness into a balanced state quickly and keep it longer, because that place of silence, that place of quietness is the source of creativity. If you don't create innovation, you create confusion. You go back into the what is called avidya kshetram. Of course, you know that some of these shlokas quite well. In the second chapter, they talk about sangat, sanjayate, kama. Depending on the group of people whom you associate with, your desires get shaped. I might be sitting with you. We are both working for the same boss. We have same background. You are in the cubicle and I am in the cubicle. And then I go for my performance review. My boss tells me, oh, I'm giving you 12% raise. Wow, I'm so happy because the standard in the company is only 4% raise. I'm getting 12%. I'm doing extraordinarily well. I immediately pick up my phone and I'm talking to my wife. And suddenly I overhear this man calling his wife. He got 14%. Suddenly my happiness about getting 3 times the average is completely gone. How could he get 14%? I'm better than him. Now, the boss whom I looked at as great, in 30 seconds has become a lousy boss because he doesn't know that I'm great and he is not. And he gave him more, promotion or more raise or more, whatever. So that means my desire is not dependent on what I did or what it is. It's always in comparison. As long as I'm comparing with somebody, the desire fulfillment is not going to lead to equanimity. It only wants more. Kamat krodho vijayate. From there comes the anger. Krodhat bhavati sammoha. From there, I actually get confused whether what he did right, what he did wrong, what I did right, what I did wrong, get confused. I get mixed up. Sammoha smriti vibramaha. I remember only what I want to remember. I don't remember it as it is. Smriti brahmsad buddhinasha buddhinasat pranasyati. So from there, my buddhi, decision making. Just, I told my wife that I'm going to stay in this company for next 3 years because I'm really happy. I come back and say, I'm going to start looking for a job. I hope this is not happening in your experiences and where you are watching and what you are doing. But the key part of this way in which the mind takes us its own path, if you do not control this pravritti and nivritti of the emotional mind, by the way, all of these are generating at the manas level. They are not happening at the buddhi level. So emotions have to be balanced. Emotional intelligence is the foundation on which innovation can take place. It is not the intelligence as in the brain, but intelligence as in the heart. The heart intelligence is the foundation for equanimity. We call samabuddhi, samatvam. That's why they say samatvam yoga uchyate. The entire context is that samatvam. Now, that samatvam takes us into yoga perspective. So mindfulness and the self-realization. These are not just the spiritual concepts. In the management, we can bring them beautifully. The whole idea of mindfulness. How present are we? How pervasive are our phones, Androids and iPhones? People are going, actually they are saying the neck pains majority of the time is not because of all this, but because we see. We are going like we fall down because our phones, if we do, everything is like looking down. So somebody told me, you have this much weight. If it is bent like this, imagine the amount of pressure that it is putting on your spinal cord. Just by learning to stand straight and look straight, at least when you are looking at the phone, don't look at the phone like this, but look at the phone like this. That will actually relieve a large amount of body pains, it seems. Why am I saying this is, we are in the group, but we are all looking at our own stuff. So this kind of a way it is happening, the brain is no longer thinking. Brain is being constantly influenced by the WhatsApp messages and YouTubes and some of them. We have no control of knowing which one is true, which one is not. They can influence much more than our friends, than our family members. So this is what you call a mind virus, mind corruption. So when that happens, our ability to be present and mindful and make conscious choices, conscious decisions is seriously affected. So being present requires certain amount of meditation training. First meditation training could be, can you leave your phone outside for an hour when you sit in a room? You try to say to people saying in the training program, 90 minutes, please leave the phone. I can't. Can you stay for a, you don't even have to do meditation. You don't have to close your eyes. Just put the phone upside down. Can't do that. Turn it off. Oh my God. It's like, what are you asking me? What if most important messages come at that time and I'm not there to receive? So mindfulness is most important. Self-realization is also becoming important. So the timeless principles of dharma, sustainability, leadership are on a very, very small edge of recognizing they are becoming useless unless you figure out a way to do something. So, as I said, in the leadership, spirituality, the yes word. In 1994, when the Boeing was making the 777 airplanes, which are now very common, Alan Mulally was a guy who was general manager. I was doing some leadership development and I was doing some coaching. I was asked to give feedback on their product review meeting. Every Tuesday, they have a 3-hour meeting. Their clients, all their people looked at what's happening. Why is it important? They have something like 7 million parts in a plane and about 30,000 suppliers are making it. And they have to be all aligned exactly for the plane to fly. So every week they have control systems, door, all kinds of things coming. So they had a fantastic project review meetings that happened. One day he had asked me, at the end of it, in front of the 60 people who were there, he asked me, how was the meeting? I did a mistake by saying, because I really enjoyed the way in which he has run it and they designed it. I said, I felt really spiritual. I used the yes word. There was a total silence in the room. Everybody started looking at each other. Immediately, my colleague, Gary Jusela, who was the vice president of HR, he really pulled me out of the room and said, run. Because, like you said something, this is going to explode like anything. And we went to lunch, early lunch, 11:30, we were trying to do. And of course, as Gary said, Alan Mulally comes running to us. He said, your consulting days in Boeing are over. And of course, just like Gary said, you use the yes word in a company. I said, that's how I felt at that time. He said, I couldn't use that word. That's what I wanted to use. But in business companies, you can't use spirituality word at all. But now you took the genie out of the bottle. You know how much of relief is there for people? He says, now suddenly, now I can say things, I can do things I did not have permission at all in my group so far. And by the way, he just prospered. If any of you want to know the Alan Malali, you can Google. He went from being a general manager of 777, he became a senior vice president, he became the head of Boeing aircraft, then he became the Ford CEO. He is right now still, I think, the Google board of directors. I had written, by the way, you can look up, I had written an article in Management, Spirituality and Religion, MSR Journal. I had written an interview with him and he became one of the top managers. Why? Because he knew how to bring spirituality in a way that brings productivity in not just, he's a Mormon, not just Mormons, not just Christians, but Jews and Muslims and Hindus and everybody else. He brought spiritual principles into management and made them work without people feeling that I am in another religion or you're putting down my religion or you're promoting that religion. I think that was 30 years ago. Actually 31 years ago, because now we are in 2025. I'm suggesting the time for bringing spirituality into workplace, I think we need to do it. But we need to do it intelligently. We need to do it carefully in such a way that we don't put down somebody else, but how to tap into the spirit of who we are. Because the spirit of who I am informs what I do day after day after day after day. If I can tap into the spirit of who you are, your purpose becomes clear because you recognize it as your Swadharma. Your passion gets unleashed because there is a freedom for you to be yourself. You don't have to pretend to be somebody else. And then your creativity can go to a much higher place because you are no longer limited from an identity which is limited and boxed in certain things. So, as I said, the happiness, appreciative inquiry, flourishing organizations are there. What can we bring? We can bring the holistic perspective. I'll talk about some principles. So the dharma, as I said, is not just an ethical one, but it's also about duty. It's about our responsibility. What is my dharma? It doesn't mean only when I'm with my family or when I'm in Hyderabad, if I'm a Telugu person. No, it is like there is a Dr. V. I don't know how many of you have heard of Dr. V of Arvind Eye Hospital. Arvind Eye Hospital in Madurai. He was a 58-year-old man who had rheumatoid arthritis where his fingers were bent that he could not do proper surgery. But when he goes in to do the eye surgery, which is one of the most delicate, he was a maestro. He was a master at it. And he retired and said, my life is, I'm too young to retire. I want to do something. So he went to his sister, Dr. Nachiyar, said, would you be willing to take our family house, which is a 4-bedroom house, let us turn it into a 11-bed eye hospital. And they built it in 1970s. Now, Arvind Eye Care is the largest eye care system in the world. And they take about 100 of the budget of the UK eye care system and serve 100 times more than the Britain eye care system. Their case studies are everywhere. Arvind Eye Care, you check out. And I had a chance to talk with him and work with that company. You know what he said? He said, I want to eliminate needless blindness. He didn't say, I want to eliminate needless blindness in Madurai. He didn't say, I need to eliminate the needless blindness. Why are these important? He made everybody else to be a partner. He said, oh, there is another eye care system that is providing. Oh, they are our partners. Somebody else. There are no competitors. They give away all their systems and processes and learning to their competitors. Because if you can join us to eliminate needless blindness, be my guest. They are into capacity building of eye doctors so that the needless blindness can be eliminated. See, that is karmanye vaditara. So, how they do? What are they doing? He said, that is my dharma. As an eye doctor, that's all I can do. I cannot go heart surgery. I can do eye surgery. But when I do eye surgery, I have two systems. One is a pay system, one is a free system, premium as we call now. He said, you can go into free, you can get exactly the same cataract, you can do everything same, except if you can afford to pay, you pay in the pay system, you'll get the same thing. Only thing is your room will be better. Instead of in a dormitory where you have 8 beds or 12 beds, you'll have a private room. Otherwise, it's exactly same. You know what is interesting? President Abdul Kalam, he was on the board of that eye care system. Just before he became the president, he was already nominated. So he was the president-elect. He wanted to get his cataract done before he goes to New Delhi. So one day with his Z security, he goes to Arvind Eye Hospital and he leaves the G security people outside. He goes in and says, I want to get the cataract. Like, sir, it will cost you so much. He takes out a checkbook. Sir, we don't accept checks at that time. By the way, the guy didn't recognize President Abdul Kalam. So the clerk said, what do I do? Today is the only day I have time. This is what I schedule. No problem. Go there. We can do the free surgery for you. President has the humility to say, fine, I will go get. He said, sir, you are an old person. I'm going to get somebody to take you inside. So he was taken inside from the paid system to free system. So he went, he paid, he went through, got his eye surgery, and he was lying down in the 8-bed or 16-bed dormitory, putting his rug, happily covering himself and snoring away like nobody's, no tomorrow. Half an hour over, 1 hour over, 2 hours over. These security people outside are very, very nervous. They don't know where president-elect is. They come in, they ask the Arvind Eye Care. Nobody knows where that person is because they didn't recognize his name to be in that way. Everybody is searching in the next 2 hours, the entire hospital. There are already rumors that he might be kidnapped. But then somebody opens up and says, oh, this name sounds like so. He never said Dr. Abdul Kalam. He didn't say I'm president. There is one Abdul Kalam there. They go roughly pull his thing out and say, oh, yeah, here he is. Why am I saying this? Humility, openness to learn, and the ability to do some of this started with Dr. V, spread to Dr. Abdul Kalam, and spread it to the rest of the world. That is possible when you do Karma Yoga. So what I'm giving examples are Dharma, Karma Yoga, mindfulness, and happiness. These are not outside-in perspectives. These have to be inside-out. As at ASCII, as a faculty, first thing which you need to do is, how am I going to integrate these Karma Yogi principles in me? How can I have integrity? Kaya, Vacha, Manasa. When I am teaching my students, when I am working with other people, am I speaking from a sense of happiness? Am I doing my dharma? Am I being a karma yogi? Am I being mindful in doing what I am doing? In doing what you are doing, what are you really doing? You have to ask question. That is the 3rd chapter essence of Bhagavad Gita. Karma, karma, karma. When you are doing something important, what are you really thinking? What are you really doing? If you start asking this question, suddenly from Avidya Kshetram, you start falling into Dharma Kshetram. That is actually becoming a Karma Yogi. When I can do it as a teacher, and if I bring that presence of mind, if I bring that alignment is what we call in India, Trikarana Suddhi. Kaya, Vacha, Manasa, there is an alignment. That we also say, no, this is not just stuff. We say, Kayena, Vacha, Manasa, Indriya, we say, Buddhyatmanava, Prakrute, Svabhavat. What does it say? Karomi yat yat sakalam parasmai I'll do everything with all these kaya, vacha, manasa, buddhi, antakarana, all of them. But whatever I cannot do, yadyat karomi, sakalam parasmai iti whatever I cannot do, narayana iti samarpayami. I'll do my best, whatever is not in my control, then I will say, please help me. That is karmanyavadhikarasthena. That is karma yogi. So, that makes sense. What it means to summarize is if you can align your personal values with your goals and organizational goals, and then fostering ethical behavior becomes an inside-out phenomenon. You cannot teach ethics to somebody, but you can practice ethics and be a role model to somebody. When they admire you, they will automatically demonstrate ethical behavior. Think about it. Who are the teachers who most influenced you? You probably became like them without even knowing why they did what they did. So how can it take that each of you become that type of a role model for somebody else? When you do that, whatever you are teaching, you have become a yogi. Why? Because you are not doing it for benefit. You are not doing it to produce result, because that has become your nature. That is what is called yoga, what we call a samatvam yoga. So dharma and karma are like a balance. Karma yogi cannot just do whatever they are doing without paying attention to dharma. So to a certain extent, ethical beauty and selfless service come together. And dharmic behavior gives you that righteousness, the ability to stand for somebody. There was one gentleman, one KK, I'll call. He was working for Aisher Consulting. I was doing a program in Brindavan Gardens. But that security guard, when this fellow KK wanted to come into the program, into the Brindavan Gardens, he said, sir, our Brindavan Gardens is only open this and this hour. You came after that, I'm not going to allow you. But he said, I'm not coming to visit Brindavan Gardens. I'm attending a program. I'm going in. If you give me a little bit, then I'll send you. He said, sorry, my company believes that we should not give any bribes anywhere. He said, sir, I'm not asking your company. I'm asking you. I think it will be good. Just 10 rupees. He said, I will give it as a dhanam or as a person who needs to feed. Come with me. I'll give you food, but not for entry. If you tell me, I will not allow you to enter unless you give me 10 rupees, then you are asking for a bribe. That I'm not going to do. So he missed 2 hours of the session. At some level, he said, it's not going to work. He sent him in. After he said, I will send you in, KK turns around to him and gives him 100 rupees and comes in. And security guard was crying. Do you see the difference between karma yogi and following your dharma and what it means to be ethical behavior? The key part, this subtlety is extraordinarily important, because we have the moral responsibility as key. If we are developing public leaders, to develop some of it, we need to be able to stand up and give examples from our own life and what we have seen, what we have heard, what we have experienced. If you don't have that, then your dharmic capability to teach some of this is also going to be seriously hampered. And the idea of, the next step, leadership insight, is this is where the accountability comes in. When you are accountable for something, it is not just being responsible for something. Very different. There are multiple examples which you can bring in, but I have a feeling I'm giving too many examples instead of giving content. For academics, I need to give more conceptual stuff, I think. But I think I have done too many executive programs, so I want to take everything which I say, even if I say two things, I want to get it into your heart, not into your head. But I need to give some heady content. So let me start giving you examples. Whatever we are talking about as Dharma and Karma Yoga, they connect with what people are calling as humility, service-driven approach, or customer-centric approach, or even servant leadership of Robert Greenleaf, or wise leadership that is becoming appropriate. These are all part of academic literature that we talk about. There are 4 concepts. We only touched on 2. In the Institute of Indic Wisdom, we found out there are 4 concepts. One is we call Sanatana Dharma as to become Nitya Nutana Dharma. By the way, Sanatanam, Nitya Nutanam is a definition. But if I say Sanatana means it's old. Nitya Nutana means ever fresh. So if I say what we are doing is contemporizing, contextualizing, and ever freshening what is there, and then applying it, people are more interested. So there are 4 things. One is Dharma, most important concept. Second is Tattvam. What is that Tattvam? Tattva means your nature, your essential nature, your true, authentic, who you are. Tattvam. Tvam means you, that you are, is the way we say. Of course, Mahavakyas come, Tattvamasi, Aham Brahmasmi, we people talk about. But what does it mean? Like authentic leadership has become very, very famous. Actually, there is a professor, there is a CEO of Metronics. He became a visiting professor in Harvard University. He has written several books, and authentic leadership has become very, very popular. That authenticity is fundamental to what is called knowing yourself. Tattvam. When you know who you are, at the deep sense of what is your swabhavam and swadharmam, that means my temperamental nature, my personality is swabhava, because it is driven by your gunas, and your actions. But swadharma is your purpose. From swabhava comes swadharma. But if you can discover, this is why I am on the planet. This is what I need to get done before I die. This is why we have formed this company. So, vision, mission, strategy, which used to be common in business schools, now they are being replaced by purpose of why am I doing, then vision of what am I doing, and strategy of how am I doing. So the order became why, what, and then how. Why you need to figure out, what we can discuss, then how you need to execute. How is the mechanical part? What is the collective discussion, shared vision? Why you do it is values driven, is purpose driven. That is where the ethics can become very, very grounded. Third is Purnam. I already talked enough about interdependence and the whole idea of wholeness. I think holistic flourishing, holistic way of thinking, system of systems. What is Boeing company? Boeing builds systems of systems, aircraft carriers, plane with 30 million parts, various people put together. So if you begin to think about what system am I part of, like same thing, it comes in like a, by the way, some of you in the academic context, you can think about Arthur Kessler's concept of holon. I am whole, but I am part of something larger. As an individual, I am whole. I am part of teaching community, the whole. As a teaching community, I am whole, but I am part of the management community. So you can build this. Each of us are whole, but each of us are part of something larger. If we acknowledge what are we part of and what are we whole of, wherever you are whole, you take accountability for that wholeness. Wherever you are part, you listen to other people and learn from them, so that your part will actually merge with their part very well. So the learning is an essential and most meaningful quality that is necessary for a teacher. That's why unlearning is a concept which is only in the Indian wisdom. Nobody talks about unlearning. If you don't unlearn, learning becomes very irrelevant. And the fourth one is Anandam. Again, it's a powerful metric. The joy is going to be extremely meaningful metric we need to start using in human development and organizational development. It is useful for creativity. It is useful for productivity. It is useful in coaching regarding effectiveness, not efficiency, but effectiveness. Efficiency is measured by time and the work that is done within a certain time. Effectiveness is how did you work with people? Like simple example I use is when people, let us say, I am the boss here, let us say, if you come into my room with certain ideas, certain things which you want to discuss with me, you have a lot of energy. Depending on how I respond to you in my cabin, you go out with a lot more energy and enthusiasm, or you go away with a deflated balloon. So I ask people, do people have more energy when they come into your room, or do they people have more energy when they leave your room? That determines the quality of your management. So either you give energy or you suck energy. By the way, in the Western movies, the vampire books and vampire movies are very, very popular because they're so used to sucking the life out of other people. There is a beautiful poem a management poet had written called David White, in case you are not familiar with W.H. White, he calls. He says, when you are coming to work in your car in this winter morning, please make sure the window of your car is cracked open a little bit, even though it is bitter cold out there, because the heart and soul that you left behind while you are working is not completely suffocated by the time you are done working. Now, if that is the workplace which sucks the heart and soul out of you, and if you are deflated every day going home, how do you get passion, purpose, and meaning? If we are not feeling that, how can we communicate it to somebody else? Your job as a karma yogi is to make sure these are the elements of happiness, energy, enthusiasm, creativity, productivity, effectiveness. These are the metrics of a karma yogi. This is what you need to bring in. And the last one, I'll say, I don't know what time I have and how much time I have. So, I have only. Okay. So, please do tell me. I will stop and I'll take questions because, as you can see, I'm passionate about this. I've spent 35 years doing it. And sometimes I completely lose track of time because I get into a flow of some of it. Only thing is, am I in flow with myself and leaving you behind? Or am I with you is the conscious thing which I keep asking. Because it is easy to talk about this, but is it going into your heart? I'll give you this presentation, you can have it, you can have things. Intellectually, I'll help you as much as you want. But where I cannot help is taking it into your hearts and practicing it. That is the karma yoga. When you can take it, put it to use today with your wife or with your kids or with your husband or with your student, then I feel my job is fulfilled. Otherwise, I might have given you a lot of wonderful stuff. None of, if it is applicable, then it's only intellectually useful. But next time you kind of sneeze, it will also go. So these are the things which we already talked about. I elaborated it. Only thing what the leadership insight out of it is, you have to integrate the space that you are creating, physical space. You have to design the physical space in a way that it is comfortable. right kind of chairs, right kind of a lighting, right kind of whiteboard, right kind of sometimes we have whiteboard or blackboard, but the pens don't work, or whatever it is written cannot be seen. Or you write it, you make the PowerPoint slide so small that people in the back cannot read anything. And they won't ask question. You don't even know what they are missing. They don't care, you don't care, the class is done. They got the certificates, you feel you have done, but you wonder why the results are not showing up. You need to pay attention to all the 5 levels. Physical space, the energy and vitality of people. Are you constantly aware of where their energy is? Are people falling asleep? Are people engaged with you? Then third one is, where are the emotional states? Are they laughing with you when you laugh? Or are they ready to cry and looking at their watches and ready to go out? You need to pay attention to that, their emotional state. Fourth, next question. Intuition is very different from instinct. Many management scholars mistake instinct for intuition. Because, in the West, they say intuition-based management. What they mean is instinct. Instinct is gut instinct. It is in your stomach. It is like the second brain, which is with the liver and the pancreas and what gives you certain nerve cells that are there. That is there. And by the way, that is what is called microbiome. There is an incredible intelligence because you have probably 1 trillion microorganisms that are controlling your health. That is the gut instinct. That is from the past. That is from something that is there. Intuition is about the future, present, and past. All the 3 are parallel and they become one. That opens up, according to some of the philosophical stuff, it's called sattvic way of being, eating, doing things will allow you to develop that third eye, where you can develop the intuition. When you do the same thing with a Rajasic way, what is in it for me? It will open up as a vision. That's why there are great visionary leaders. But problem is, they don't know how to execute, but they are getting a lot of people to buy into their vision, but nobody knows how to execute. They are inspired when they listen to you. They start perspiring if they have to apply it. That means you are operating, not including them as a part of developing it. It has to become a shared vision before they can execute. The third one, Tamasic way of doing this, is I don't need the vision. I don't need no stinking intuition. Just tell me what to do and how much I pay. In Xerox, I had to do a program. There was a lady called Josie. She was a training assistant. One day, the director was not there. When I went to the program, there were 5 people instead of 15 people in the program. I asked her, what happened? You brought me all the way from California to Rochester, New York, where the Xerox is, for 5 people. You are running at a big loss and you paid all my this one. Why? Why didn't you tell me that we should cancel this? He said, that is above my pay grade. I'm not paid to think. I'm paid to execute. So, but you know that it is profit loss. No, I know exactly what is happening. But you know what? My boss never gave me an authority to think. He just told me, do what I tell you to do. That is Tamasic approach. I will do here and now. I will do what is within my grounds, and I will do cost, quality, delivery, customer satisfaction. I will take care of. We need 80 to 90% of the people to be Tamasic. Without that, you don't get into a bus or a car or a motorcycle because that will collapse. Tamasic is necessary for safety. Tamasic is necessary for cost to be contained. But that doesn't allow you from being a worker, order taker, to become an agenda setter. If you want to be an agenda setter, you need Rajasic nature. But from being an agenda setter to actually to be an advisor, to guide and say, this is where we should go. From a Raja to Rajaguru you need sattvic nature. Karma yogi is a sattvic nature. But when they act, they bring rajasic. But when they execute, they bring tamasic. When you bring all the three, suddenly you are integrating your physical, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual being. That is what brings balance and wise leadership. So I'll just leave after this. This is the last slide I use. The mindfulness Buddhist way, it has become very big, by the way. In United States, in Silicon Valley, when they have this wisdom conference, Wisdom 2.0, as they call it. If you Google, you will find a lot about Wisdom 2.0 conferences. There is a guy called Soren Gordhamer who started this. He was a yoga instructor and he wrote a small book called Wisdom 2.0. You will still find in Amazon or used books, Wisdom 2.0. In Federer Institute, he got funding. At the same time, I was getting funding for my wisdom research. And he created a Wisdom 2.0 conference. Now, last year, when they had a Bay Area conference, there were 2,500 people paying on an average $900 per person to attend a 2-day, 3-day workshop. Most of it is on mindfulness and most of it is on self-awareness. So, what we are talking about as the Indic spirituality, we are still thinking whether it should be an academic discipline or whether it's a political party trying to rub it onto our face, is something academic discussions will continue. But practically, people are begging for mindfulness because the mental health is really low. 1 in 3 people around the world are taking either medication for depression or anxiety or, some kind of situation. Mental health is one of the worst right now. And in India, we do not think about therapists. We do not go to therapists. Even if we have major problems, we feel ashamed to talk to even our other family members, let alone go to a doctor and talk about it. So here we have a lot of hidden stuff which we build it up and build it up. So the emotional illnesses become physical illnesses and cancers, diabetes. India already the diabetes capital of the world. Lifestyle diseases are increasing because whatever you suppress at the mind shows up in the body. Whatever you suppress at the ego level shows up in the mind. Whatever you surrender at the mind and this one, that frees up your body. So your health actually goes up as you open up. So the unlearning we need to do is these are not religious stuff. These are eminently practical, useful, both in a human development perspective and in the organizational developmental perspective. Developing a leader, developing a human being is connected to knowing some of these 5 things. So mindfulness and interdependence is something extraordinarily important and valuable. And again, what does mindfulness mean? Simplest definition is present moment awareness. Like, for example, I can ask you a simple question and raise your hands if you know the answer. I want you to pay attention to, or you ask yourself, am I breathing from left nostril? When I'm breathing in, to be very specific, when I'm breathing in, am I breathing in from left nostril or right nostril or both? If you are breathing in from only right nostril, raise your hand. If you are breathing in from left nostril, raise your hand. If you are raising in from both nostrils, raise your hand. If you are breathing in from, or not breathing in from any, don't have to do anything. We will carry you out later. Now, by the way, many of you raise for both nostrils. What does it mean? That means you are lazy or you are totally unable. Because most of us do not breathe from both nostrils most of the time. There is a redundancy system, and majority of the time we have a certain primacy of one nostril, and after every few hours, about 4 hours, what nostril you breathe in will shift. You know why and how you notice that? If you have cold, even if your cold is, one nose is the one that is, you are having little congestion, even though one nostril is free, you struggle. You know why? Because when the breathing tries to change, your congestion blocks. So you feel only the one that is not working, but the one that is working, it doesn't get better. Why am I saying that? Just by paying attention to your breathing while you are doing it, you automatically stop thinking. We all have thoughts. Martin Heidegger wrote a book called What is Called Thinking. The most important statement I took out of that is, he says, in these thought-provoking times, the most thought-provoking thought is that human beings have a lot of thoughts, but they are not still thinking. You got it? We have a lot of thoughts, but we don't think. This is not just Martin Heidegger who said it in 1930s. Even in Rigveda we say, Ano Badra Kratavo Yantu Viswataha. What does that mean? Let the good thoughts come from all directions. Why is that? We rarely think for ourselves. Every time you think, you become creative. Einstein said he had only two original thoughts in his mind, in his life. One was about the relativity, another is about the photoelectric effect. But he never had a third thought. And you probably know about the fight between Niels Bohr and Einstein when Niels Bohr came up with the quantum models, quantum theory, saying the atoms go in a discontinuous orbits, ASDF. When he said that, Einstein said, nope, it's not possible. Why? God doesn't play dice. Everything is continuous. They are not in discrete numbers. Einstein said, did God tell you that? He said, no, it's common sense. By the way, till the end of life, they never worked together. So you never created the quantum and the relativity. They never come together. That is still a major field in physics. What am I trying to say? If you want to think, you need to go from bottom up. Get your body to be quiet. Get your breath to be synchronized. Get your emotions to be quiet. Then the buddhi will really work extraordinarily well. And by the way, that buddhi working is called dhyana. Actually, ultimately, all meditation techniques, when they say, please meditate, it is helpful, that is because you can learn to think. You can have some new ideas. You don't get stuck in the same old mindset, or your conflict with other people will resolve itself. Your emotions will balance itself. So that means by going from and integrating body level to breath level to heart level to the mind level, suddenly you will find the happiness which comes, which is internal happiness that is evoked and provoked. And that part of it is called integration. By the way, if you want to learn more about it, there is something called Patanjali Yoga Sutras. They talk about yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. By the way, you may ask a question because you are an academic professor, and I will stop after this slide. Is the yama, niyama. What is the role of yama and niyama? Yama means certain disciplines we have to practice. You need to make a commitment to the universe. I'm going to stop lying, or I'm going to take care of the sustainability, or the universe, whatever is the nature. I'm going to pay attention to the world around me. I'm going to honor the principles that you have set for me. Those are disciplines. Then niyama means nitya yama. The disciplines I will follow every day. Those are what you call practices. Practices and principles. Those are like ahimsa, asteya, like I will not steal, I will not intentionally hurt somebody, or I will do saucha, I will clean my body and I will clean my mind. What does it mean? You can't take a toothbrush and clean your mind, but what it means is whatever are the things that I'm carrying from yesterday that are generating disturbances, I'm going to drop them so that I am open to listen to, I'm open to learn. When I do that, things will happen very differently. These two, yama and yama, are outside, relating to other world. I create a relationship. Then body first, asana. I hold my posture in one and I have certain stability. By the way, yoga doesn't necessarily mean being in this contorted particular asana and staying there. Sukham, stiram, asanam. You have to be sukham, you have to be comfortable and you have to be able to stay that pose. And that's why the difference between gym and asanas or yoga is in yoga, you breathe through the asanas. In gym, you don't breathe in the asana. So that means you first get the body's constant, breathe into it, then you will observe breath because your body is stable. And you quiet your breath, then your mind you can observe. You quiet your mind, your thinking will observe. And when your thinking is quiet, then you feel happy. So the connection between body wellness and the mental wellness, the link is the breath. Between the mental wellness and your innovative capability, your own ability to quiet your mind, quiet your thoughts, and follow certain buddhi discipline, that is what enhances that. So we can do a lot more in this area because it brings clarity, emotional intelligence, and helps you to manage stress. And the last part is the interdependence. Again, this is there, like I mentioned it, Aikamatya Sutram. In addition to Purusha Suktam, there are lots of Suktams in this particular Rigveda 10th canto. That was Sangachatvam, Samvadatvam, Sabvo Manam Tijanatam. If you haven't heard the Aikamatya Suktam, this is beautiful. Sometimes people also say, if you have conflict with somebody in your family or your friends, listen to that, and both of you listen to that. It is supposed to have some very interesting effect. What does that essence say? We will do together, we will work together, and together we will actually grow and we will do various types of things. This is connected with the ESG, stakeholder-centric leadership, sustainability mindset. So there are lots of things. As you can see, I can give you a lot of content. What I will do is, I'm not going to talk about it. I'll give you this slide where you will talk about how this compares to some of the recent hearings. I will do something about, how you can take it into and compare it with the NEP, National Education Policy. I've given you details. You don't need me to tell you this. You can read some of these. And then I have a framework which I have developed using the Indic wisdom in terms of, levels of innovation and the value chain, innovation value chain. Because how you innovate at a conceptual level, how you innovate at a design thinking level, how you innovate at a prototyping level, how you innovate at a manufacturing level, how you innovate at a marketing level, how you innovate at a sales level and back office level, they are all different. So your innovations are to be aligned at all of them. And same thing, if you are just replicating the medical tablets because the patents are out in the West, India has become the medical capital because we do all kinds of medicines for out there. Next level is incremental innovation. Next is breakthrough innovation. Evolutionary innovation, breakthrough innovation. So there are layers of how you can combine with and then bring that in. So I will not go into this, but this is what MSR group is doing. And I went into deep into it so far. But what we talked about, you said, we have quoted some of these so far. And the summary I want you to focus on is Indian knowledge systems is essential today, not just for India, but for the world. You guys have a pioneering opportunity for you to develop courses, for you to actually apply it to yourself and apply it to people. Then you can become a global leaders, not only for Indians globally, but for other people. And those are the four concepts: Karma Yoga, Dharma, Mora, which are very important. Panchakosha, mindful, interdependence. There are lots of things we can talk about. How to develop holistic flourishing, shared flourishing, and flourishing organizations, and innovation synergy. We can really look at how to innovate. Already, as Indians, we are extraordinarily good in creative thinking. But that creative thinking at an individual level has to be value creating rather than value receiving. We all focus on what is in it for me. We may need to start asking, what are we creating for others? Then, whatever we create to the community, because we are part of the community, we're going to be beneficiaries of the community. If we can develop that mindset, there's a lot that we can do. And here are the references for some of what I touched upon. And then